This week, Emmet and I continue our look at Jack Kirby's issues of Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth, including a giant insect, a violent horse race, another standout issue in the mode of the King Kong story, a clue as to how the animals became intelligent in this world, and more. First, just a reminder that you can help this podcast by making your Amazon purchases via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon, and make that your bookmark for future purchases. Deconstructing Comics earns a bit of money from your purchase that helps us keep the show going. We really appreciate your support. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo, and Emmet is in Australia somewhere in the outback, or Country Victoria, you always say. I have no idea what that means, but...
It means I'm in the country in Victoria.
Okay. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I listened to our previous episode of this, the first half of Kamandi, and I was a little alarmed at the sloppy drinking throughout the episode because of the whole every time Kamandi gets knocked out, he take a drink. I am relieved to say at the top of this episode that Kamandi gets knocked out once. So I'm abandoning that.
So we're talking about issues 11 through 18 here. I found 4 times.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, like every other issue is getting knocked silly.
More casually tonight.
Okay. I think that's probably a little bit slower pace than the first 10. But indeed, I did find 4 incidences, which I've all marked in my notes.
I mean, he might be the last boy alive, but he's certainly got, prohibitive brain injury at this point. His skull must be like papier-mâché. It's just...
Yeah, well, there's one instance in particular where he gets bonked with the butt of a gun. Some of the other times, I wasn't really sure what knocked him out.
Right. Well, that was the one I was thinking of. I was thinking when he got knocked out with the butt of the gun, I was thinking, oh, okay, that's the one.
Yeah. Well, to kind of get into it, in the first issue that we're talking about, issue 11, so, when we left off, Kamandi was with Ben Boxer and Steve and Renzi in Fantastic Car 2.0, and the car starts coming apart and it crashes into the ocean, and then he's floating in the ocean, unconscious. So, drink.
No. I don't accept this.
Okay, why?
I'm saying that he's fallen unconscious. He wasn't hit unconscious. I was going.
Okay,
every time he gets knocked out.
You're being more specific of how he becomes unconscious.
Yeah, he's. I would put this down to exhaustion.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I feel like every time he's unconscious, it's only because the story needs him to be unconscious. Even it's
a scene transition.
You see it in TV shows too. Like, why is he unconscious? Because it's necessary for this plot. Even if there's no reason for him to be unconscious.
Yeah, I would much prefer him to be sort of chambermaid. Lilting, fainting constantly, like just going, I wouldn't mind that as much as this, because I'm concerned for the condition of his skull.
Yeah.
But no. He falls into the water, he almost drowns, he doesn't, and then he's picked up. And, my reading is that he's exhausted. He's just completely, flat out.
I guess so. Yeah, he's picked up by leopard pirates. Ben, Steve, and Renzi are gone and are not seen at all in these 8 issues after the initial couple pages of issue 11. And the pirate ship, I wrote up little summaries of each issue this time. So the pirate ship is owned by Sacker's Department Store, apparently located in Old Florida, and the pirates are, I don't know if you can call them pirates if they're employed by a corporation.
You most certainly can. You most certainly can.
In this story, anyway.
Yes. I believe that was the British Navy. Once upon a time. A bunch of pirates who just had official title.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I've heard that, yeah.
or who were acting on behalf, any settlers acting on behalf of the Indian company. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how Kirby, I think, repeatedly has action taking place in certain areas of what was the U.S. where the animals have reverted back to some earlier point in human history. So pirates hung out a lot in the Florida area at one time. And so I think he's going off of that. Okay, well, we're reverting back here to, I don't know, the 1600s or something.
Yes, but as we talked about the last episode, they call themselves humans. These creatures don't acknowledge that previous history, with the exception of the lions. The lions actually acknowledge that there's a descent of culture that's occurred here. But the others all have simply adopted different styles of behavior. And it reminds me a lot of the video game Fallout, particularly Fallout New Vegas. I might have mentioned in the last episode too, but there's a faction in Fallout New Vegas which is set in the far future, but they dress and behave like Roman centurions and Roman legionnaires. So it's the idea of simply codifying your society based on some record that you've now reestablished. And yeah, they all seem to have dipped into the previously human civilizational record, and then go, oh well, I like that bit. Yeah, I want to be a pirate in the sea. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. So it's but yeah, it's Kirby just deciding to have fun with different genres, which is great too. It's a great excuse.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's his reasoning. I want to work with pirates now, so. The pirate's task is to gather up things and creatures and whatever to be sold at Sacker's department store on the mainland, including wild animal humans to be sold as slaves. Not sure how they can be slaves if they're wild animals, but some of them we've seen are a little bit intelligent, like Flower. They can speak. They act a bit more like Kamandi does. And they also have on this ship something called the Devil, which on the last page turns out to be a huge kind of grasshopper creature.
Which, going by Kirby's map, seems to be what happened to Canada.
Right, Canada, yeah, what is it, Land of Devils or something?
Yeah, which we assumed meant something fiery, or but it's giant insects.
Yeah,
have taken over Canada, I think is the implication.
You'd think it would be mosquitoes.
There might be, but
yeah. Well, if Kamandi ever goes up there, maybe we'll see some Minnesota State birds up there. Yeah. So, anything else to say about issue 11?
Well, yes, the issue of slavery you raised. Certainly, here we see that. The animals, which we call people, the animals are enslaved, and they are treated as, they're literally referred to as cargo, which is something we know from our own historical record of the treatment of slavery, that they are not treated as people, they're treated as cargo. The other interesting thing as well is they've also enslaved other, inverted commas, humans. We see apes, we see lions, pumas, all these different other animal species. This is going to get confusing fast, but they are all also enslaved. So it's that complicated history of slavery as well. That it's you take away the rights of the person. The person is no longer a person, and that's what this is a comment on too. But yeah, no, I just didn't want to leave that unremarked upon. It's something that keeps coming back. All the different factions keep trying to enslave Kamandi, and Kamandi keeps commenting on it. They would make me a slave. Is something he says. So yeah, and it's sort of particularly in the American canon, I feel like it's an issue that typically gets glossed over unless you have a white, blonde-haired young man being treated, and then all of a sudden it becomes a very real prospect. The issue of slavery. So it's interesting that Kirby keeps bringing it back.
Yeah. Okay, so issue 12. We've got the huge grasshopper still. Kamandi befriends the grasshopper and names it Kliklak. And he's got a saddle to put on Kliklak, and he wants to ride Kliklak out to freedom. But he's stopped, of course. And when they get to Florida, he meets Mr. Sacker, who is a huge snake. And he meets, as we mentioned last time, Flower's twin sister, Spirit.
Yes. Who, again, is less of a character and more a character motivator. She's literally there. She's literally the prize to be offered to whoever wins a certain event that's going to come in. I do like that Kamandi guesses that Sacker is a snake. Like there's this build up to, well, I know what you are. You're a snake. He literally is a snake. Yeah.
One of the few non-mammals that we've seen, become intelligent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, arguably Kliklak as well. There's intelligence there.
He doesn't speak, but
there's something there. Yes, he's a reptile. Yeah.
Sacker wants Kamandi to be freed and put in charge of training Kliklak. I mean, Kamandi keeps getting these breaks because there's so many cases throughout the series where he could have been killed, but there's always somebody who's saying, "Okay, be nice to him. Okay, don't kill him." And so he just keeps lucking out. Like that. Yeah,
well, I mean, again, it's I see why he pushes back each time. Now, we are two white men talking about this, so I don't want to overstep. But there is a sense of, were he to accept his lot with any one of these would-be masters that he's encountered, he would basically be the houseboy. He's useful. He has the ability to speak. He shows intelligence, but he is still, in their eyes, an animal. And that's what we talked about last time. He will never accept that. So in this case, yes, he's useful because he can train. He's bonded with Kliklak, and he can train Kliklak to race. And, Kliklak's fate is unavoidable. There is a sense of he'll die in the race one way or the other. And Kamandi's useful to Sacker because he'll get a good race out of him. He makes some money off the the betting and all the rest of it. But it's not freedom. He's not free.
Right. He's working for Sacker, whether he wants to or not.
There's an invisible leash,
He also meets Bull Bantam, who is a human who can talk and participates in this really dangerous version of horse racing, where the riders shoot at each other while they're racing around the track on their horses. And Bull tells him that, as you mentioned, Spirit is the prize in this race, which, Kamandi's not happy about this at all because humans shouldn't be prizes. So, of course, he gets in a fight with Bull Bantam in the mess hall and tries to escape again because he doesn't want to participate in this horse race where he's supposed to kill other people, but of course he gets pushed into it anyway. And we see at the end of issue 12 that they are in Hialeah, which is a real town in Florida near Miami. It also is or was a U.S. military base in South Korea, but that's a whole other thing.
If we are racing to the next issue, I don't want to leave it unremarked upon. Again, there's a sort of political context to a lot of what Kirby does, but the opening of this issue, you've got the collected things that the pirates have stolen from the fallen civilization, and there's an amazing sign. Funny animal pictures now on sale. It's a picture of Adolf Hitler and Kamandi going, I wonder what the terror of the world would think if he saw his status now. And it's funny animal pictures. That's great.
Yeah, well, and it's not surprising, I think, coming from Jewish ex-military World War II veteran Kirby,
who witnessed the fate of people in the camps. Let's all piss on his grave here. Yeah. It's a great little beat. Right.
So issue 13, it's race day, and Kamandi almost gets trampled by the horses. Of course, he gets in a fight with people, and then he gets dragged along to participate in the race. It wasn't clear to me here if he became unconscious at any point or not. It seemed like on the top of page 7, he might have been unconscious because they're carrying him by his arms and legs, and his head's just hanging down.
No, he's restrained. He's restrained. He is not unconscious.
We can't see his face, so there's no way of knowing. Face,
but his arms and legs are both being held by several different people. So he's suspended in air. So his hair is falling down in front of him. We can't see his face. He's fine. He's restrained. He's moving. He's moving. Like you can see that, like the characters around him. There's like movement lines. Mm-hmm. So I think he's struggling.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. So you just don't want to take a drink.
No, I would love to. I do enjoy my drink, Tim. But I think, there's a line. There's a line. I'm not crossing it.
Yeah, and he has words with Bull again. And then it turns out not only do they have horse races at this track, but they also have tweeler races. What's a tweeler? It's a two-wheeler. It's a motorcycle. And the tweelers race around the track chasing a strawberry shortcake like a rabbit at a dog track.
That's amazing. When I realized what it was, I thought, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Because I thought it was because I just glanced over the page and I was reading, and I thought it was some lit object, like a stop sign or something like that, like some sort of signal. But then I realized it was actually a piece of cake, and I was like, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And yeah, in this case also, the racers are killing each other as they race. Kamandi tries to escape on Kliklak again, but doesn't manage to. He's forced to ride Kliklak in a horse race. And after gunfire and explosions on the track, Kliklak gets shot. And the crowd is upset because the race hasn't finished. And then Bull Bantam comes in riding a buffalo and lassos Kamandi and is dragging him along as the issue ends.
Yeah, we should mention as well that Bull is very much a Kirby typical in that, his face is very similar to the unmasked, unaltered Orion. So that sort of brutish aspect to his face. So like this Kirby type. And yeah, he's this aggressive, hyper-aggressive, ugly-souled individual. Like he's constantly taunting Kamandi. He just sees Kamandi as a threat to his dominance of this group, and that's all he's interested in. He just, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier on about, like, be existing within Sackler's system with benefits is no kind of freedom. Mm-hmm. And this guy is happy to be that houseboy, that sort of character who simply is there enjoying what's been given to him, whereas Kamandi will never accept that. Kamandi is always trying to get out and get away. And yeah, Kliklak's fate, it makes me so sad. Like, it's just such a miserable sequence of events here with Kliklak. And the fact that I'm feeling emotions about a giant grasshopper, that's Kirby for me. He makes me he makes me think about these monstrous, ridiculous situations in a very emotional way. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what I took away from this. Just the spectacle of it, everyone cheering, all the gamblers put their money on the various animals, hairless animals who are like killing each other on a track with like fire bombs and
for
guns.
The crowd, it's all just entertainment.
It's just entertainment. It's like a dog race, and it's
they're
just
upset if the action stops.
Yeah. I've only been to one race. It was a horse race in Dublin, and it's not for me. Like, I can't do it. I think it's inhumane. I think it's horrible. But I remember when I worked for a particular place in Dublin, we were trying to come up with ideas for like bonding exercises for the team, like things we could do in an evening out, and everyone kept suggesting dog racing. Let's go to the dogs. Let's go dog. I was like, no. Let's not do that. Let's not watch these poor animals get run to death and mistreated and all the rest of it. Let's just go to the pub, guys. Come on.
All right, so issue 14. Bull is dragging Kamandi to the finish line, but then a shot rings out and the rope is severed. So somebody's a really good shot. And we find out who that was. It was Tufton, the Tiger Prince. The fans are really upset because the rope was cut. They were enjoying seeing Kamandi dragged along the ground. Tufton is there with Dr. Canis.
Yeah. So did we know that they had a relationship? Had that been established? I think they were both in the same. I think we knew they were in the same regime, but I don't think we knew that they knew each other.
Yeah, not. I don't know that we saw them together, but yeah, they were both there in that section with Caesar and the Centurion stuff. But customers at the track aren't allowed to bring firearms, so Tufton gets in trouble. He's a prince, so he gets off a little easy, I think. So, meanwhile, Kamandi and Bull fight it out, first on their mounts and then hand-to-hand. And Kamandi wins, but Kliklak is mortally wounded, and Kamandi is forced to shoot him and put him out of his misery. So, he's really sad, but, he's being celebrated at the same time because he won the race, and he's won Spirit, which, he rejects that idea of owning her. And he goes berserk against the leopards, and this is where his head meets the butt of a gun. So this is definitely, undoubtedly, a place to drink.
Okay, everyone, fine. I'm drinking a very nice red tonight.
He wakes up in this small little pen, and Tufton and Canis have found him, and Tufton makes some kind of trade with Sacker to release Kamandi to him. And we see at the end that the compartment that Kamandi was in was a gas chamber, and he would have been killed if Tufton hadn't bailed him out.
It's a chilling last panel. That's chilling stuff. It's very, terrifying, really. Mm-hmm. And they've got the lethal pellets. They've got these gas pellets in a box that they're ready to just toss them in. Yeah, again, I think Holocaust imagery does keep sort of creeping back into this book, and that's certainly one of the more striking examples.
Well, in many of these Kirby DC books, we've seen Holocaust-related imagery, certainly in the Fourth World. Coming up, our favorite issue of this batch goes in a direction I never expected, a partial explanation about how the animals in this world became intelligent, Kirby seemingly lifting from a film that was 6 years in the future, and more. But first, a reminder to join us for 20th Century TV and Music Trivia Quiz videos and more on our Patreon page. Every month, patrons donating $4 a month or more also get a full-length podcast episode reviewing an issue of The Amazing Spider-Man from the 1960s. Check out our goals and rewards at patreon.com/deconcomics. If you'd rather give a one-time donation, you can do so via PayPal by sending it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We appreciate your support.
Do you like comics? The 1960s? How about middle-aged gay couples gossiping about their neighbors? Then you'll love Checkered Past.
A loving examination of DC's Go-Go Check branded comic magazines published from February 1966 to August 1967.
I'm Dr. Bob.
And I'm Dr. Husband.
And each week we'll be your hosts on a trippy tour through mid-century four-color madness. Checkered Past. Available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded for free.
Okay, issue 15. This one I loved at least as much as the King Kong issue. Yep, we're on the same page here. So this is coming out, I looked it up, this is early 1974. So maybe it's not surprising, but I never expected to get a whole issue referencing the Watergate scandal.
Yep.
And so at the time of Watergate, I was in elementary school, but I watched the news with my dad a lot, so maybe I didn't understand everything that was happening, but I heard, a lot of the kind of Watergate vocabulary, and I knew the names of the people involved in it, even if I couldn't tell you what they did. So in this, they're going to Washington, D.C., or what was Washington, D.C., we find out that the trade that Tufton made was that in exchange for taking Kamandi, he's supposed to get the Watergate tapes for Sacker.
Because Sacker is a collector. Sacker has collected all these different artifacts from the past. We've been shown that. So yes, there's this idea of Watergate for Sacker. It's just another object.
Yeah.
And what we'll discover in this issue is that there's this group, and for them it's a fetish object. which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a cult that has formed among these apes around the Watergate tapes. They're the voice of the spirits.
Yes, and I find it interesting because, in a way, neither of them are actually reflecting on what Watergate is. Mm-hmm. It's just this sort of projected significance of Watergate that's being sort of upheld here, either as trivia, as sort of a memento of a time, or as this quasi-religious, similar to what we saw with the splashdown ceremony. Like, it's amazing. It's just this great sort of, let's reenact all these things. But yet, not actually what Watergate is about, what it is, what it means. And I feel that's very astute, because that's something we've been living with for the last 40 years, because every scandal is suddenly a gate.
Yeah, something gate. Yeah.
Which is a way of, I feel, defanging the event. Because immediately you make a connection with Watergate, and you go, well, how long ago was Watergate? 40 years. Oh, it's like that thing that happened 40 years ago.
Well,
so
50.
Mentally, yeah, exactly. Mentally, your sort of alarm about whatever this political scandal is has been switched down. Because you're saying, well, we handled Watergate. The thing is, we didn't. We didn't handle Watergate. And if you read about Watergate, one of the interesting things about it is that, like, it sort of was fading away. It wasn't actually the home run we seem to believe it was. It wasn't like this. Like, Nixon had high approval ratings still. Like, he was doing well. That's the scary part. And it's sort of after the fact, years after the fact, more and more stories have come out about him being, like, off his mind on substances and wandering around the White House lawn in the middle of the night, just shouting it randomly at people, like all sorts of crazy stuff. But we didn't know any of that. And I kind of feel like Kirby goes harder here with this little pastiche than all the President's Men did. Like, you know, where the action of the film stops before the events themselves. Like, the action of the film ends at, okay, now something's going to happen.
So now the story has come out, but...
Yeah. And so they didn't want to actually portray it in the film. Here, we've got a heightened version of those events, but heightened to an extreme that's ridiculous. And I actually think that's more impactful again, because it's sort of making it look how absurd this was. Look how silly this was. And the last page, we'll get to it, but the last page as well, just that amazing bum note to end things on. Just brilliant stuff. So, powerful.
Yeah, so on their way to Washington, they stop at a place that the caption says it's in Virginia called Stakeout. And I felt like the building that you see there was meant to look like a certain real building, but I couldn't identify it. I wasn't sure what Kirby was getting at here.
Right. Yes. Well,
and it talks about that it has some horrible significance to the tigers, but it's not really explained any further than that.
Well, I don't know if stakeout for a tiger would reflect their being staked out in the open, where they would be on a chain or on a rope, on a chain maybe. Probably, and they would be forced to go round in circles around this stake. I don't know if that's what's being mentioned in reference to the tigers.
It's
stakeout,
an evil symbol of a dark fragment of the past, what the caption says.
When they're in captivity. Stakeout itself, I did wonder if, like, where was the actual Watergate Hotel? Because that was my thought. Like, is this actually where the stakeout was happening?
That Watergate, I think, is still there. It's within Washington D.C. itself.
Then I have no clue. I meant to look into
and I've seen the Watergate, and that's not the Watergate. I
don't know if Jess Nevins has done annotations for Kamandi, but like I feel I need some background material on this.
Yeah, I searched and couldn't find anything about this. So then there's a scene, I guess they're at Stakeout, and Kamandi is taking a bath, and he's singing Yellow Submarine. And he tells Tufton that his great-grandfather claimed that the song was written by Beatles, Beetles.
He didn't know about the beat. BEA.
And Tufton says, that's not funny. I'm expecting lots of trouble from Bugs. Now, Bugs here is hidden microphones. And this is when we start getting into all the Watergate terminology. Break-in, plumbers, hearings.
There's a movie that's just come out with Woody Harrelson about the plumbers. Again, like that sort of casual way of designating these people who are doing dark arts for Nixon. But yes, I love this little interaction. I love that they're both. It's almost David Mamet-esque, you know. They're both at total cross purposes because Kamandi's talking about the band, the Beatles, but he's referring to beetles, as in, you know, insects. And Tufton is talking about bugs, as in, he assumes, giant bugs, but he's actually referring to surveillance devices, bugs.
Yeah.
And it's just a neat little crisscross. I just like it.
So since Tufton and Canis were after the tapes, the guerrilla cult around the tapes captures them and kind of tries them, but they're sitting at like a hearing table with microphones all over it.
Yeah, when we meet them, when we first meet these characters, like they're constantly referencing things that they've recited off
plumbers
over and over
and hearings,
again.
yeah. In quotation marks, always.
In quotation marks, so we understand that this is like mimicked speech, but like immunity, plumbers squad, break-in, hearings, all this stuff. That's great.
Right, and the what was it? Oh, the death subpoena is issued for Canis and Tufton. And they're to be executed with the Watergate sound maker, this huge contraption on 4 wheels that has kind of a speaker on the front that blasts incredibly loud sound at them. The gorillas, the apes, have learned to kill with sound. It turns out that the sound is an actual Watergate tape run at high speed and cranked up to 11. But Kamandi and the other Tigers arrive. They've come through the, what do they call it, the Senate Railway, which is a real thing, but it's in this it's been extended all the way out to Stakeout. And so they chase the apes off and destroy the contraption, and they find the tape inside and start playing it at regular speed, and it has... You can hear the very Nixonian expression, "I want to make this perfectly clear," and then the tape breaks. And Tufton says, "Don't bother fixing it." Kamandi says, "It doesn't mean much now."
Like, again, like what insurance did Sacker have that, you know, he sent them on this mission and then they fail, in effect? Although, you know, they probably just... What's probably been said here is that they both realize this thing needs to be buried forever, and let's just pretend we didn't find it and walk away. But yeah, there is this. I just had this thought just there. So what was the insurance for them not bringing it back? Because there was an exchange. So what? Yeah, you know, how would he ensure they would live up to the end of the bargain?
Yeah, what Tufton just doesn't go back, I guess.
It just doesn't go back. Yeah. You know, prerogative of princes, I guess, but like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if Sacker has hitmen that
plumbers of his own.
Find him and take him out.
Yeah, no, this is like a major highlight of these issues. This is just before we start recording, listeners, you know, Tim and I both say, "Oh, I think I know which one you like, and I think I know which you like." And yeah, it is this one. This is just a great issue, and lots of fun. Very clever in its sort of poking fun at the Nixonian scandal. And yeah, I am impressed with it just as a discussion of, as I said, how these events became fetishized. Because in a way, as I said before, in a way that's a method used to sort of inoculate the public from actually thinking about what just happened. You know, and one of the ways you do that is reduce things to buzzwords. So I love that the gorillas were just talking in buzzwords the entire time. There's something really interesting about that. You know, that they're locked into this way of thinking. They're not actually thinking clearly at all. And when they're trying to execute Tufton and Canis, like, they refer to them as the burglars.
Yeah.
They talk with them. But the burglars were Nixon's people. That was the point. So there's this sort of projection going on constantly. Yeah, it's just very, very good.
So issue 16 gives us some clue about how the animals gained intelligence in the Great Disaster. We're still in Washington, and Kamandi finds humans in cages that are labeled experimental animals. And he's captured by a couple apes who are surprised to hear him talking. So they take him to the professor, Professor Hanuman, who is, of course, an ape. And he has made something called Cortexin, which was originally developed by a Dr. Michael Grant just before the Great Disaster. So I think we can assume that he was actually human. And he wants to try it on Kamandi, but his boss says no, and he has Kamandi locked up with the other animals. And for the rest of the story, it's Hanuman, if I'm pronouncing that right, seeing a parallel between Grant's final notes leading up to the Great Disaster about an animal, maybe an ape, who he had tested Cortexin on, and he called this animal the Whiz Kid. And so Hanuman is comparing that, or seeing a parallel between that and his own observations of Kamandi as a war is going on outside between the tigers and the apes. So it's not quite as big scale destruction as the Great Disaster, but he sees a parallel there. And then much of the action is narrated by Dr. Michael Grant's diary. And so you see what Grant was recording in his time. Kamandi is kind of doing the same things as the Whiz Kid did back then, which I thought was really interesting. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I imagine Kirby had some kind of meaning in mind here, but couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Like Hanuman, the name comes from Indian mythology.
Oh.
Hanuman is a god. And my takeaway was, because Hanuman and Dr. Grant witness parallel events, and those events unfold more or less in the same way, because it all relates to this chemical agent that advances intelligence. I saw it as sort of eternal recurrence. Things just keep happening over and over again. The same set of events will reoccur. And that's something that, comes from Hinduism and was sort of embraced by certainly like the German idealist philosophers who were discovering Eastern philosophy for the first time in the 19th century. They started talking about these ideas, these concepts. Eternal recurrence is Nietzsche's big claim. But yes, this idea of the same thing will happen over and over again. And that's what this is explicitly. It's the Hanuman is reading the diary, reflecting on the fact that he himself is now in the same position, and he is now witnessing the sort of wheel turn and the lower animal becoming superior, and his society now, to him, looks like it's now collapsing. So it's this recurring failure. So yeah, I think it's. I mentioned this to you as well before we started recording. I think this is the most interesting issue. The Nixonian Watergate stuff is brilliant. It's a lot of fun, but this just seems like a really wild Kirby intellectual riff. Just he's just following an idea to its conclusion.
I thought it was kind of moving, even if I wasn't sure what it was trying to say. But it was still kind of interesting, and I don't know, it seemed a little sobering.
Yes, you've got these factions, the tigers and the apes, killing each other en masse, and then this mob of animals, the former humans, that Kamandi is stuck with. They're turning on each other as well, and then they get unleashed, and in being freed, they suddenly start gaining intelligence because they've been exposed to this chemical. And so the present day humans, tigers and apes, are reduced to the state of animals, and then the animals become more human. So it's this, we're seeing it work out, and we have him witness the former prisoners escape using all these different techniques, and showing a higher awareness of where they are and what they're doing, while everything burns down around them.
I was really struck by the art in the panel of the humans who have just been exposed to Cortexin, and they're standing there. I mean, they're not doing anything in that panel, but you can really see that they have been changed by the Cortexin. They're not the wild animal humans that we usually see in this book. They look more thoughtful and intelligent. Just he managed to make that difference in their faces that I thought was really well done.
But they have this expression of shock on their face, and I mean, again, I don't mean to come across as completely pretentious, but I am just trying to say that with Kirby, you always have to bear in mind that he's a rich thinker. Like, he's drawing on multiple sources. Mm-hmm. So the thing this panel in particular brings to mind to me is the being expelled from the Garden of Eden, or after eating the fruit of knowledge. Adam and Eve suddenly feel shame, and I think illustrations of that moment are similar to this moment. This suddenly the scales fall from your eyes and go, what is this? Why am I dressed like this? Where am I? What am I doing? That's what this looks like to me.
So, issue 17, in that battle, he refers to it as the Battle of Washington, D.C., Kamandi is captured and bound and gagged and put in the back of a truck with other humans who are only bound. I guess they're not gagged because they haven't spoken any words. And then they're carried in this truck over a road that's kind of falling apart. It's really a bumpy ride. And the wild humans in the truck are all kind of hysterical about it.
We have to identify the name of this issue, the title of this issue.
Okay.
The Human Gophers of Ohio! Exclamation mark. It's fantastic. I was like, I remember I cracked this open. I was like, what am I in for now? It's just gotta be. Turns out it's very literal.
So Kamandi manages to cut his rope, and he, for some reason, frees the other humans who, just kind of attack him. Rather than, they don't have any gratitude. They're just wild. And so they're making a lot of noise, and the apes stop the truck and open the back doors, and all the other humans escape. And Kamandi comes out dazed. And better drink. He's knocked out with a sharp blow.
This is the one I was thinking of. I'd forgotten about the previous one, but yes, fair dues.
So he's still being hauled along. The other humans are gone. We see the tigers leaving Washington. So Kamandi is tied up again. He's with these apes, and these apes. It's a military force, and they're laying out their supplies, and these hands are coming up from under the ground and stealing the supplies. These gophers. And
so is this meant to be Nashville?
Well, no, that's in Tennessee. So it says in the title, this is Ohio.
Oh, I see. Okay, because I was wondering about the use of the pun, because we're arriving in Vanishville.
Yeah, I saw when I saw that, I thought of Nashville too, but maybe I don't know if that's what he's thinking or not, but yeah, it's the wrong state for that reference.
You can see. Sorry, it looks like Mound City, Ohio, or Bound for City, Ohio. I'm not sure, but yeah, we're in Ohio. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is an M. Yeah, Mound City, Ohio. I guess that's a real place. I've not heard of it. So the way that the apes decide to deal with it is that they tie this basket to Kamandi's back and send him down into the hole. And he doesn't realize that this basket contains bombs. So they're sending him in as kind of an unwitting suicide bomber. And so he gets down there, and these gophers are like, they were human, and they've sort of evolved under the ground, and they've got these claws, and they all look kind of gray, a little bit like Mole Men in Marvel.
Yeah, so here's the question I have. So he refers to them as looking human because they're human. You know, they're not gophers. They're clearly bipeds.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it strange because he wouldn't say the same. Like, the apes refer to themselves as human. The lions refer to themselves as human. All the other species refer to themselves as human. Kamandi calls them beasts, creatures, whatever. But the gopher men he says they look human. And I just wonder why he makes that distinction, because for me, my takeaway was, no, they were previously gophers, and all these different species are becoming more humanoid. Like, all of them are, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another species that's become true evolution or true forced evolution, whatever has occurred, humanoid. So yeah, they have humanoid features, and he's going, oh, they look human. But yeah, I just found it odd because he credits them with more humanity than he does any of the other peoples he's met. He's interesting. He's made an interesting distinction.
Well, yeah, he seems to take it for granted that they were humans and have evolved into this rather than being apes or tigers that have evolved intelligence. So maybe he feels like he can identify with them a little bit more as fellow humans. Because
one of the key pieces of evidence he uses is their use of language. Mm-hmm. So again, it's very odd, like, because all the other species speak language. So.
Yeah, the only words that these gopher people know are good and bad.
Yeah, and he's saying, oh, they've been reduced, so that's the only words they remember. But I was like, well, maybe it's the only words they're capable of, having learned the language. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, so he tells them that these bombs are bad because they're like trying to eat them and whatever. So, but he convinces them that they're bad, and they all throw the bombs back out of the hole and knock the apes for a loop.
I do love that the ape has like a military style buzz cut, and he's smoking a pipe. he's got the full military era buzz cut. What was the name of the chap from the first Gulf War?
Oh, geez. Peter Arnett?
No, they got the chap who... Anyway. Cut this bit, Tim.
I'm not sure which guy from the Gulf War you're talking about.
Schwarzkopf.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Norman Schwarzkopf.
So the apes then send gas into the hole. So Kamandi and the gopher people retreat further underground, and there's the ruins of a factory there, and in the factory there's a machine that's running, and Kamandi wonders what the purpose of the machine is, which is the last bit of the issue. And then the teaser says, Kamandi will find out real fast, and so will you. Coming, the Eater. And on the cover of issue 18, we see the Eater, who is this huge worm with big teeth, just eating everything.
Yeah, again, like, I think people who are familiar with Dune will recognize the sandworm if they see it.
So, briefly in issue 18, the machine breaks. And then we find out what it was for. It was to scare away the Eater.
Right, which is exactly like Dune. That's what they do. That's what it does in Dune as well. The thumper machine keeps the sandworms away.
I see. Okay, I'm not really familiar with Dune, but okay, that seems to be what he's going for here then.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, we have to ask Kumar. Kumar is the Dune expert.
Oh, yeah, Kumar's the guy, yeah.
So, when the machine's not working anymore, no noise, no vibration, then here comes the Eater. So it starts eating everything in the holes, the rocks, and whatever else that the gopher people have there. Now, the apes don't know about the Eater. They're just trying to get rid of the gophers. And they leave explosives and ammo near the gopher holes. And they're thinking that when the gophers come to steal them, then the apes can set off the explosives and solve their gopher problem Caddyshack style. We're prefiguring Caddyshack here. Wow, Kirby thought of everything.
Yeah. Caddyshack. The Gophers will do a little dance at the end. You know?
I'm all right.
Thank you. That was killing me. I was trying to remember the lyrics.
But so Kamandi comes out of the hole, and the Gophers say, "Okay, wait till the Gophers show up." And here comes the Eater. The Eater eats the explosives, and of course, then the explosives go off and blow the Eater to Kingdom Come, and the apes bug out. So the Gopher people are probably fine, but we don't find out because Kamandi steals one of the apes' rovers and drives off.
Yeah, and I thought this was an interesting interlude for Kamandi because whenever he's found, as we've talked about, whenever he's found a moment of peace with Canis or the prince or that lion who took pity on him as well, as we've kept talking about, there's usually this moment where he breaks because he's going, "You're not talking to me as a person. You're treating me like an animal." And with the Gopher people, this issue 18 begins with him pulling a very elaborate distraction stunt to keep the apes occupied while the Gophers raid even more of their stuff, of their supplies. Like he's actually leading the apes on a chase, and there's this big fight scene where they're swinging on ropes, and they go, "Aha, we know ropes." And he's like, "Well, have you thought of this?" And he's actually outmaneuvering them on the ropes. And the upshot of it all is he was just occupying them while the Gopher people did their thing. And the thought occurred to me that, is it that he feels more comfortable with the Gopher people because there is no one leader or person talking to him? They're just a group. And he can do his part as part of that group. So, like, he's happy with that. That's what he wants. He wants to belong to something.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like being told who he is or who he should be by a master. I'm going to refer to them as masters now. Last episode, we talked about them as father figures. I think it's now... I think it is more of a dominant, submissive type thing.
Yeah, because they still...
reject it.
Treat him as kind of an oddity, a talking animal, rather than an equal.
Yeah.
What is Kamandi eating on page 8?
Yeah,
some kind of orange
it's a fruit
thing. For some reason, the color kept making me think it's like a piece of the thing.
Oh, right.
One of the thing's rocks.
Oh, I see. No, I think it's just a piece of fruit. Yeah,
maybe it's an orange or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The coloring doesn't help. Oh, I think orange is a safe bet. Yeah. Nectarine or something.
Anyway, so that seemed like a good place to cut it off. And 10 issues was a little much last time, so we did 8 this time, and we've come out to right about an hour here.
I think we rattled them off quite efficiently. Thank you, Tim. As I said, I really enjoyed this half of the collection. I think Kirby sort of found his footing with these issues and was able to do that sort of meta humor we've talked about, but then also the pathos of Hanuman. There's just a beautiful piece of invention there. And I just really enjoyed it. I thought there was more ambition at work here. I thought it was funnier at times as well, but it just felt more emotional to me. Less goofy catchphrases like that. Have you ever seen a rat frog man or whatever the phrase that'll haunt my dreams. And I didn't blast my palate with all the wine drinking from him getting hit in the head, so that's good. It was just much more enjoyable to me.
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't notice that much of a difference, but I did think it was enjoyable. Yeah, and it seems like every chunk we take has that one special issue in it, King Kong or Watergate, or we'll see what's coming up in the next batch.
Yeah, so how much longer is he on it for? Is it 50 he pulls away?
No, it's so he wrote 37 issues.
Got it.
Then 38 through 40 were drawn by Kirby but scripted by Jerry Conway. How far does your collection go?
Just one more issue. So it finishes at issue 19.
Okay. I think it might be the same book I have digitally.
I tell a lie. Sorry. 20.
20.
Finishes at 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's probably the same as I've got because I can see from the slider at the bottom that I'm getting near the end. So yeah, next time we'll need to get Volume 2 so we can get a decent-sized batch.
I hope it's been published. But this is just, I think we talked about Kamandi and the Demon sort of being the books that Kirby was shunted off the fourth world onto. And with Kamandi, he just found the perfect blend of things he's interested in, I feel. And there's more of a hook to it as well. Like The Last Boy on Earth is a great line, even though technically he's not. Even if you were to argue he's the last intelligent boy on Earth, well, by the end of these issues, that's not true either. Things have turned around quite a bit. But it's fascinating how he finds his feet with these issues, I feel.
I'm looking on our friend Jeff's website. You know which Jeff I mean. I don't know if there's a second volume, but they have individual issues all the way up to 40. So if all else fails, we can get digital issues.
I thought it'd come to that.
Yeah, because the book that we're finishing here is labeled Volume 1, but it's not clear that Volume 2 has ever come out.
Yeah, and I feel this is it. Look, who knows? Maybe there's a steep drop-off in quality. I don't know. But Kamandi feels to me as like a very strong book. Like, this feels like a very interesting premise. And, they've teased Kamandi's return a couple of times. Different projects have reintroduced Kamandi. Final Crisis hinted at Kamandi. We actually saw Command D, the base. And that Sunday, what was it called? Sunday Paper Comics or whatever, where they had almost the broadsheet comics anthology with the likes of Neil Gaiman involved. That had
Wednesday Comics?
Wednesday Comics, thank you. I think that had a Kamandi story in there. And he's come back, recently too. There's been another Kamandi book recently, but this feels like a very prescient work from Kirby, but also feels very much a product of its time. And it's enjoyable to revisit it. I think if you were to do it today, I think you overhaul it. You don't try and continue this. You overhaul it again. You explore different ideas. I'm not going to make anyone's life easier by telling them how to do that, but I feel like you need to, because there is a cultural break that's occurred since the 70s. And I don't think we can restage all of the elements that make this interesting. But as somebody looking back and with that context in mind and thinking about the 70s, think about Watergate, think about King Kong, Hollywood, B movies, post-apocalyptic nuclear disaster movies, all the stuff that was going on at the time. It's just such a rich text, So that's why I'm so drawn to it. I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it looks like there is no Volume 2, so we're going to have to go for individual issues, yeah.
All right, well, I'll happily hunt some down.
Kamandi is published by DC. If you've enjoyed this week's show or any other Deconstructing Comics episodes, tell your friends. Share your favorite episodes on your social media. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube by clicking our social media buttons at deconstructingcomics.com. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. And go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. If you're looking for some constructive feedback on your comic, send it to us and we'll critique it on our spin-off podcast, Critiquing Comics. Send it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. Next week, Kumar interviews colorist, digital artist, and art professor Jose Villarrubia, who colored such books as Alan Moore's Voice of the Fire and The Mirror of Love, Paul Pope's Batman Year 100, and quite a selection of Marvel work. We hope you'll come back for that interview next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.